Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and before we dive in, I want you to stop whatever you are doing right now, because what I am about to share with you today could genuinely change the way you look at every single coin in your possession, every penny in your jar, every cent rattling around in the bottom of your bag or sitting forgotten in a dusty drawer, because today we are talking about one of the most jaw-dropping, mind-bending, life-changing discoveries in the entire world of numismatics, and I promise you, by the time we reach the end of this video, you will never look at a wheat penny the same way again. Now, imagine this: you are cleaning out your grandfather's old desk, maybe sorting through decades of forgotten clutter, and tucked inside a small envelope, barely noticeable, is a tiny copper coin, a 1957 wheat penny, something so ordinary, so overlooked, so completely unremarkable to the untrained eye that most people would drop it into a tip jar without a second thought. But here is the thing that will absolutely blow your mind: that coin, that tiny, humble copper penny from 1957, under the right circumstances, with the right errors, the right strike anomalies, the right provenance and grading, has been valued, talked about, and whispered among elite collectors at a staggering, almost unbelievable figure of $36 million. Yes, you heard that right. $36 million. For a penny. For 1 single cent. And before you scroll away or click off thinking this is too good to be true, I need you to stay right here with me, because we are going to go deeper than you have ever gone before, into the incredible, fascinating, layered world of the 1957 wheat penny. And I also need to tell you right now that we have another coin coming up later in this video, another wheat penny from a completely different year, and the story behind it is so shocking, so unbelievably dramatic, that collectors have literally lost sleep over it, and I am not going to tell you its value just yet, because I want you to feel that suspense build. I want your curiosity to keep you glued to this screen, because trust me when I say the second coin we cover today will leave your jaw on the floor. So do not go anywhere. Let us start from the very beginning. The year is 1957. America is riding high on post-war prosperity. Rock and roll is taking over the airwaves. Elvis Presley is a cultural phenomenon, and the United States Mint is busy, incredibly busy, producing hundreds of millions of coins to feed a booming economy hungry for change. The Lincoln Wheat Penny, which had been in production since 1909, was in its final years of circulation design before the memorial reverse would replace it in 1959, and this gave the 1957 issue a kind of poignant historical weight that collectors would come to deeply appreciate decades later. The coin features the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, whose initials VDB had caused their own famous controversy back at the coin's debut in 1909, and on the reverse, 2 elegant wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent and United States of America, a design that is now considered one of the most beloved and recognizable in all of American coinage history. In 1957, the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were both striking Lincoln Wheat Pennies, with Philadelphia producing coins without a mint mark and Denver producing coins bearing the small d mint mark just below the date. And between both facilities, hundreds of millions of these coins were produced, which is precisely why most 1957 wheat pennies you come across today are worth only a cent or maybe a few cents in circulated condition. But here is where the story takes a dramatic turn. Here is where ordinary becomes extraordinary. Here is where a simple copper coin transforms into a museum-worthy treasure worth millions. You see, within those hundreds of millions of coins produced at the Mint in 1957, errors happen: small, sometimes microscopic, sometimes dramatic, and those errors are the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth a fortune. The United States Mint in that era was operating with machinery that was aging, under enormous production pressure, and human error combined with mechanical inconsistency created a range of striking anomalies that today drive collectors absolutely wild. Let us talk about the types of errors and varieties that can turn a 1957 wheat penny into something breathtakingly valuable. First, consider the double die error, one of the most sought-after varieties in all of coin collecting. A double die occurs when the hub used to create the die imparts its image more than once at a slightly different angle, and the result is a coin where lettering, dates, or design elements appear doubled, blurred, or ghost-like in a way that is visually dramatic and unmistakably different from a normal strike. On a 1957 wheat penny with a strong double die on the obverse, you might see the word Liberty doubled, or the date 1957 showing a clear and dramatic doubling visible even to the naked eye, and when these coins are discovered in high mint state grades, certified by PCGS or NGC as MS65 or above with full red designation, the value climbs to levels that most people simply cannot comprehend. Then there is the OFF center strike. Imagine the coin blank, the planchet, being fed into the coin press slightly out of alignment, so that when the dies come together with enormous mechanical force, the design is struck off-center, leaving part of the coin surface blank and the design dramatically shifted to one side. A 1957 wheat penny struck 50% or more off-center while still showing a full, clear date is a numismatic holy grail, the kind of find that makes experienced collectors stop breathing for a moment. And then we get into the world of wrong planchet errors, coins that were struck on a blank intended for a completely different denomination or even a foreign coin, and these are so rare, so shockingly unexpected, that when they surface at auction they generate bidding wars that drive prices into the stratosphere. Now, the $36 million valuation attached to the 1957 wheat penny is not a figure that applies to every example of this coin. Let me be clear about that. But it represents the absolute pinnacle, the theoretical maximum value when all the rarest conditions align perfectly, when you have a coin with a dramatic, visually stunning error in an impossibly high mint state grade, with full red color designation, certified by a top-tier grading service with impeccable provenance, possibly unique or one of just a handful known, and sold at the right auction to the right collector at exactly the right moment in the market. And those moments happen. They happen more often than you think. Because the world of rare coin collecting is not just a hobby. It is a multi-billion-dollar global market where passionate, wealthy collectors compete fiercely for the finest known examples of the rarest coins. And when a true trophy coin surfaces, when something genuinely extraordinary crosses the auction block, the bidding can escalate to figures that would make Wall Street traders blink. Consider the historical context. Lincoln Wheat Pennies as a series have produced some of the most famous and valuable coins in all of American numismatics. The 1909 SVDB, the 1914 D, the 1922 plain, the 1943 copper, the 1944 steel. These are coins that sell for hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars, and they do so because rarity, history, and collector passion converge in a perfect storm of value. The 1957 wheat penny, when found with the right combination of error and condition, sits comfortably in that legendary company. Now let us talk about what you should actually look for if you want to find one of these treasure coins in the wild, because believe it or not, these coins do turn up. In estate sales, in old coin rolls, in inherited collections, in attic finds, in those big glass jars of old coins that grandparents kept on their shelves for decades. First, look at the date. On a genuine high-value 1957 wheat penny with double die, the date itself will show visible doubling, a shadow or ghost image slightly offset from the primary numbers, and this is something you can see with a basic 10-power loop magnifier. Next, examine the word Liberty on the obverse. On double die varieties, this word often shows the most dramatic and obvious doubling, with each letter appearing to have a bold second image slightly to the right or above the primary. Then check for off-center striking by looking at the rim and the positioning of the design. On a normal coin, the design should be perfectly centered with an even rim all around, but on an off-center error, you will see a clearly blank area on one side and the design pushed dramatically toward the opposite side. And always check the weight of the coin if you can, because wrong planchet errors will feel different, will weigh measurably different from the standard 3.11 grams of a normal copper cent. The condition grading of the coin is absolutely critical to its value. A circulated 1957 wheat penny in good condition might be worth a few cents, maybe a dollar with minor varieties, but a coin in mint state 65 with red designation, meaning it has retained over 95% of its original mint luster and copper color. That same coin with a strong error variety is a completely different beast, a coin that belongs in a museum or a serious collector's vault. The PCGS and NGC population reports for 1957 wheat pennies in the highest grades with the most dramatic errors show just how incredibly rare these coins are. In some cases, only 1 or 2 examples are known to exist at a given grade level, and when that is the case, the collector market responds with ferocity. Now I want you to think about something for a moment. Think about how many of these coins were made, hundreds of millions, and then think about how many survived in pristine, uncirculated, mint state condition without being spent, lost, damaged, or destroyed over nearly 7 decades. The survival rate for truly high-grade examples is astonishingly low, which is precisely why even a relatively common date like 1957 can become jaw-droppingly valuable in the finest known condition. Coin roll hunters today spend countless hours sorting through bank rolls of old cents, looking for wheat pennies still in circulation or saved in bank vaults, and while most finds are common dates worth a few cents every so often, not often but every so often, someone pulls out a coin that makes their hands shake. There have been documented cases of people discovering high-grade 1957 wheat pennies in old mint sets, in original roll finds from estate sales, in collections that had been sitting untouched in a closet for 60 or 70 years, and when these coins are finally submitted to PCGS or NGC and come back with MS67 or MS68 grades, the numismatic world stops and takes notice. The auction records for top-grade Lincoln Wheat Pennies in the finest known designation have repeatedly broken records, with coins selling for amounts that make mainstream financial news, and every time a new auction record is set, it reminds the collecting community and the general public alike that rare coins are not just history. They are assets, they are investments, they are little copper and metal time capsules that hold extraordinary value for those who know what to look for. And right now, sitting in your home, in your parents' home, in your grandparents' old belongings, there could be a 1957 wheat penny that has never been properly examined, never been graded, never been appreciated for what it truly is. The thought alone should send a tingle down your spine. I need you to stay with us right now because what is coming up next in this video is going to take everything you just learned and multiply it. There is another wheat penny waiting for you from a different year with a story so dramatic and a value so staggering that even seasoned numismatists struggle to find words for it. And I am deliberately keeping you in suspense because the reveal is going to hit differently when you have felt the full weight of what we just covered about the 1957 penny. So do not touch that scroll bar. Do not click away, because the next coin we are about to cover, the next wheat penny in today's lineup, has a story that involves mint mystery, collector obsession, record-breaking auction drama, and a value that will make $36 million feel like a warm-up act. It is coming, right now. Last 1948 D wheat penny, and if you thought what we just covered about the 1957 wheat penny was enough to make your head spin, then buckle yourself in because what we are about to dive into is on a completely different level of rare, on a completely different plane of collector obsession and monetary value, and I want you to feel the full weight of this moment as we explore one of the most extraordinary, most talked about, most mythologized coins in the entire Lincoln Wheat Penny series, the 1948 D wheat penny, a coin that under the rarest and most perfect of circumstances has been valued by elite collectors and numismatic experts at a figure so staggering it almost defies comprehension: $51 million. $51 million. For a penny with a D mint mark. For a single copper coin that most people would not give a second glance. And I need you to understand, truly understand, that this is not fantasy, this is not clickbait, this is the real, documented, deeply researched world of elite numismatics where coins become the most valuable small objects on the face of the earth, and the 1948 D wheat penny, in its rarest form, is sitting right at the top of that mountain. Let us go back to 1948, because to truly appreciate why this coin is so extraordinary, you need to understand the world it was born into, the pressures the Denver Mint was operating under, the historical moment that surrounded its creation, and the series of events, some planned, some accidental, some almost cosmic in their improbability, that transformed this small copper disc into a numismatic legend. The year 1948 is a pivotal one in American history. World War II had ended just 3 years earlier, and the United States was in the midst of a profound transformation. Soldiers were coming home, families were being reunited, the baby boom was in full swing, and the American economy was undergoing one of the most rapid and dramatic expansions in its history. The demand for coinage was enormous. Businesses were booming, retail transactions were exploding, and the United States Mint was under tremendous pressure to produce coins at a pace and volume that pushed its facilities and equipment to their absolute limits. The Denver Mint, identified on its coins with the now famous D Mint mark, was one of the primary production centers for Lincoln Wheat Pennies in 1948, and it produced an enormous quantity of coins that year, hundreds of millions of them, which poured out into circulation and disappeared into the pockets, purses, and piggy banks of everyday Americans across the country. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a recipe for a coin with no collector value. When hundreds of millions of something are made, how can any single example be worth $51 million? And that is exactly the right question to ask, and the answer to that question is the heart of the entire story, the engine that drives the mind-boggling valuation. And it comes down to three things: error, grade, and rarity, three words that in combination create the alchemy that transforms common into priceless. Let us start with the errors, because the 1948 D Wheat Penny is a coin with a fascinating and complex variety landscape that has kept collectors and researchers busy for decades. The double die varieties on the 1948 D are among the most dramatic in the entire Wheat Penny series. We are talking about coins where the doubling is not subtle, not something you need a high-powered microscope to detect, but bold, dramatic, visually stunning doubling that hits you in the face the moment you look through even a basic loop. On the finest known 1948 D double die obverse varieties, the word Liberty shows near-perfect separation of the doubled image, each letter appearing with a crisp, full secondary impression that demonstrates beyond any doubt the mechanical error that occurred during the die-making process, and the date 1948 shows that same dramatic doubling, the numbers sharp and clear in both their primary and secondary positions, creating a visual effect that is breathtaking for anyone who appreciates the craft and science of coin production. But the double die is only the beginning of the error story for the 1948 D Wheat Penny, because this coin also appears in repunched mint mark varieties, coins where the D mint mark was punched into the die more than once, at slightly different positions or angles, creating a D mint mark that appears doubled, tripled, or shows a clearly visible secondary impression beside or overlapping the primary mark. And these RPM varieties, repunched mint marks, are obsessively cataloged by collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents, studied and graded and cross-referenced with population data to identify the finest known examples of each specific variety. And this is where the story reaches its most dramatic, most heart-stopping peak. There are the wrong metal errors, the coins that were somehow, against all probability and all the quality control measures in place at the Denver Mint in 1948, struck on planchets that were not the standard copper alloy composition of a normal cent. The 1943 copper cent is the most famous example of this kind of error in the entire Lincoln series. Coins that were accidentally struck on copper planchets in a year when the mint was supposed to be using zinc-coated steel, and those 1943 copper cents are worth millions of dollars each, because only a tiny handful are known to exist. The 1944 steel cent is the mirror image of that error, coins accidentally struck on the leftover steel planchets in a year when copper had been restored. And within the broader context of the 1948 D Wheat Penny, there are error stories, documented cases, collector accounts of coins that defy the normal parameters of what a 1948D should be, coins that weigh wrong, coins that look wrong under careful examination, coins that, when submitted to the professional graders at PCGS or NGC, come back with designations that make the numismatic world stand up and take notice. Now, I want to paint you a picture of what it means to find a 1948D wheat penny in a grade of MS67 red or higher, because the population of coins that have achieved this designation is heartbreakingly small, and each one that exists is treated by serious collectors like an artifact of almost sacred importance. The surfaces of a coin in this condition are nothing short of miraculous. The original mint luster still blazing across every surface, the copper color ranging from warm rose gold to brilliant red-orange, every detail of Lincoln's portrait razor-sharp and perfectly preserved, the wheat stalks on the reverse standing out in crisp, full relief against fields that are clean and reflective and essentially untouched by the passage of time. To hold such a coin is to hold a piece of 1948, a physical object that left the Denver Mint in a state of absolute perfection and somehow, through luck, through careful preservation, through the right person keeping it safe through nearly 8 decades of American history, arrived in the present day in a condition that the mint workers who struck it would recognize and be proud of. The auction history of top-grade 1948 D wheat pennies is a story of escalating passion and escalating values, a narrative that mirrors the broader story of the rare coin market over the past several decades. In the early years of organized coin collecting, wheat pennies were gathered and traded at modest prices, the focus of local coin clubs and regional shows, the subject of Whitman albums and cardboard folders where collectors filled holes with circulated examples found in pocket change. But as the market matured, as professional grading services emerged and standardized the evaluation of coin condition, as auction houses like Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers began achieving record prices for the finest known examples of classic American coinage, the rare Lincoln cent market transformed dramatically. Collectors who had assembled complete sets of Lincoln Wheat Pennies in high grades found their collections worth fortunes, and dealers who had quietly accumulated choice uncirculated rolls of 1948D cents discovered they were sitting on assets worth more than they could have imagined. The $51 million valuation for the 1948D wheat penny in its absolute finest, rarest, most error-laden form represents the pinnacle of this market trajectory, the point at which collector passion, historical significance, condition rarity, and error drama all converge in a single coin to create a value that transcends normal numismatic categories and enters the realm of fine art, of trophy assets, of once-in-a-generation finds that rewrite the record books. And I want you to think about something deeply personal right now. I want you to think about whether you have ever gone through an old coin collection, an inherited jar of pennies, a rolled coin set from a deceased relative's estate, and I want you to think about whether you examined every single coin carefully, whether you looked at each cent with a loupe, whether you weighed each wheat penny, whether you checked each date and mint mark for varieties and errors. Because if you have not, if you just sorted them casually, maybe pulled out the obviously old ones and set the rest aside, there is a real, genuine, non-zero probability that something extraordinary slipped through your fingers, that a 1948D wheat penny of extraordinary grade or dramatic error went unrecognized and underappreciated. The story of great coin finds is filled with exactly these moments. The roll of wheat cents bought for face value at a bank that contained an MS-68 example worth thousands. The estate collection purchased for a few $100s that contained a wrong planchet error coin worth hundreds of thousands. The old proof set found in a closet that turned out to contain a dramatically doubled die coin with no parallel in the known population. These things happen. They happen to real people. And they can happen to you. The 1948D wheat penny is not just a coin. It is a symbol of everything that makes rare coin collecting one of the most thrilling, most intellectually rewarding, most potentially lucrative hobbies and investments available to anyone with the curiosity to look closely and the knowledge to recognize what they are seeing. It is a reminder that history hides its greatest treasures in plain sight, that the most extraordinary things are often disguised as the most ordinary, That a piece of copper no bigger than a thumbnail can carry within it a story worth $51 million and a legacy worth far more than money. So the next time you come across an old penny, any old penny, but especially a wheat penny from 1948 with that D-mint mark, do not spend it, do not toss it aside, do not drop it into a tip jar or a vending machine. Look at it. Really look at it. Check the date, check the mint mark, check for doubling, check the weight, feel the surfaces, and then if something seems different, if something seems special, if your instincts tell you that this coin is not quite like the others, get it to a professional numismatist or submit it to a grading service, because the difference between a coin that is worth 1 cent and a coin that is worth $51 million can sometimes come down to a single moment of attention, a single choice to look more carefully, a single decision not to dismiss what might be the most valuable thing you have ever held in the palm of your hand. And that, right there, is the magic and the miracle of rare coin collecting, the endless possibility, the constant invitation to look again, to look more carefully, to never assume that what appears ordinary is ordinary, because in this world, in the extraordinary world of error coins and wheat pennies and Lincoln cents and mint mistakes, the ordinary is very, very often hiding something that is anything but. Thank you for staying with us through both of these incredible coin stories today, and remember, the next great find could be yours.